My boss had never called me into his office without warning, and he had never looked afraid of anything. But that morning, when he locked the door behind me and pressed a sealed envelope into my hand, his eyes were wild with panic. He leaned in so close I could feel his breath against my ear and whispered, "Do not open this here. Go home. Pack a bag. Take your daughter. You have 24 hours. Then he turned his back on me, as if saying another word would break him. I stood frozen, gripping the envelope, wondering if this was some elaborate prank or an insane test. But the tremor in his voice told me otherwise. This was real. Something had happened. Something that had already put my life in danger. And the man I thought barely knew I existed was suddenly trying to save me from it. Before I tell you what was inside that envelope, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from, because once you hear what happened next, you might start questioning the people you trust the most. My name is Natalie Reyes. I'm a 29-year-old single mother living in a small apartment on the south side of Chicago with my daughter, Ava. She's 7 years old, bright and imaginative, always drawing pictures of the two of us holding hands. She is the center of my world, the reason I wake up every morning and fight through every challenge. Life hasn't been easy. Ava's father left when she was still in diapers, claiming he wasn't ready to be a parent. Since then, I've juggled 3 jobs, late night shifts, and countless sleepless nights just to keep a roof over our heads. Things finally started to feel stable when I landed a full-time position as an administrative coordinator at Stratton Financial Group, a private firm in downtown Chicago. The work was intense, the expectations high, and my boss, Rowan Blake, was known for his demanding standards and cold personality. But I didn't mind the pressure. It paid well enough to send Ava to a good school, and I was proud that I earned it through my own hard work, not charity, not luck. That morning started like any other. I woke up before the sun, braided Ava's hair, and tucked a little note into her lunchbox like I always did. She asked if we could stop for pancakes on the weekend, and I promised her we would. I had no idea that within hours, everything would change. The train ride to work was packed. People were half asleep, scrolling on their phones, sipping coffee, mumbling about meetings. I remember looking at the skyline as we approached downtown and thinking, maybe life is finally becoming normal. Maybe our struggles are finally behind us. That peaceful thought would be the last I'd have for a long time. When I arrived at the office, something felt off. It was too quiet. Normally, the reception area buzzed with greetings and phone calls, but that day, everyone spoke in hushed tones. I even noticed 2 men in suits I'd never seen before standing outside the executive elevators, watching everyone who passed. I tried to ignore it and headed to my desk. At exactly 9:14 a.m., my phone rang. It was my boss's assistant. Her voice was tense. "Natalie, Mr. Blake wants to see you immediately." Before I could ask why, the line went dead. My chest tightened as I walked down the long hallway toward his office. I told myself it was probably about the quarterly reports or an upcoming audit. I had no reason to fear him. I hadn't done anything wrong. But when I stepped inside, everything changed. Mr. Blake was standing by the window, his back to me, shoulders stiff. He didn't greet me. He didn't even turn around at first. Finally, he faced me, and I saw it, pure fear. His voice came out low and urgent. "Close the door, Natalie." He reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a sealed envelope, and pushed it across the table toward me. My name was written on it in bold black ink. He looked directly into my eyes and said, "Whatever happens today, do not panic, but you must do exactly as I say." In that moment, I understood this wasn't about work. This was about survival. I held the envelope in my trembling hand as I stepped out of the building, each breath tight in my chest. The cold air hit my face, but it did nothing to clear the fog of confusion in my mind. My boss, a man known for showing no emotion, had looked terrified when he handed it to me. His words echoed again and again, "Go home. Pack a bag. You have 24 hours. I didn't know if I was in danger or if someone was targeting my daughter. That thought alone made me grip the envelope even tighter. I hurried through the crowd, desperate to reach home. Every stranger's glance felt like a threat. I locked the apartment door behind me and double-checked it, then stood in the middle of the living room, clutching the envelope. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I slid my finger beneath the seal and tore it open. Inside were 3 things: a one-way plane ticket to Durango, Colorado. Departing at 7:45 p.m. That night, a prepaid phone with a single number saved under the name, "Call only this," and a photograph of my daughter Ava standing outside her school, taken that very morning. My blood ran cold. I had been at work when this picture was taken. Someone had been watching her. There was also a handwritten note. The ink was slightly smudged, as if written in haste. "They know what you saw. Do exactly as instructed. If you remain in Chicago after midnight, they will come for you and Ava. Trust no one. You are being watched." The phone slipped from my hand and hit the couch. My legs felt weak. What had I seen? I couldn't think of anything unusual. I had been working on financial transfer documents, just numbers, spreadsheets, client accounts, nothing that seemed dangerous. But if this was connected to Ava, I couldn't waste a single second. I rushed to her school, keeping my head down, scanning every passing car. When I arrived, Ava was sitting in her classroom, happily coloring with her friends. Just seeing her little face eased the panic inside me, but only for a moment. I signed her out early and told her we were going on a surprise trip. She clapped her hands with excitement and asked if it was for ice cream. I forced a smile and told her she'd find out soon. On our way home, I noticed a black SUV in the rearview mirror. It was several cars behind us, but every time I changed lanes, it followed. My heartbeat quickened. I didn't tell Ava. I didn't want to scare her, but I took a different exit and circled back onto another road. The SUV appeared again. My throat tightened. This was real. Whatever was happening, we were being followed. When we reached our apartment, I moved quickly. I told Ava to pack her favorite clothes and stuffed animals. She ran to her room joyfully, unaware that with every item she placed into her suitcase, we were racing against a silent clock. I packed essentials, documents, cash, and the envelope. The phone kept catching my eye, pulsing with urgency. I turned it on, and it immediately flashed a message across the screen. "Do not call until you reach the airport." Just then, my regular phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated before answering. A calm female voice said, "They are outside your building. Do not open the curtains. Leave through the back entrance. Take only one bag each. Say nothing to anyone. If you want your daughter safe, follow the instructions." Before I could ask who she was, the call dropped. I went still for a moment, fear slamming into me so hard I had to grip the countertop to steady myself. This wasn't paranoia. This was targeted. They were watching us right now. I turned calmly to Ava and said, "Sweetheart, we're going out the back door, okay? It's a surprise adventure." She giggled, thinking this was a game. I guided her quietly down the stairwell, every creak of the steps making my heart leap. The building's back exit opened into an alleyway that led to a side street where I had parked my car. I held Ava's hand tightly as we moved quickly toward it. As I buckled her seatbelt, I heard something that froze me in place. A man's voice from somewhere above us, speaking into a radio. It was faint, but I could make out a few words. "Target has moved. They have the child." Panic surged through me, but it also lit a spark of determination. If my boss risked everything to warn me, then the danger was real, and I couldn't afford to doubt him. I got into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled out as calmly as I could. I didn't know what waited in Colorado or who had sent that woman's voice on the phone. All I knew was this: someone was trying to protect us, and someone else was hunting us. And the reason for all of it was buried somewhere in those financial documents. Something so big, so dangerous that my ordinary life had just become a race for survival. The wheels of the plane lifted off the runway. For the first time in hours, I exhaled, not because I felt safe, but because there was no turning back. I watched Chicago shrink beneath the clouds and held Ava's hand. She rested her head on my arm, drifting to sleep, unaware that our entire life had just been uprooted. As the engines roared, I replayed everything in my head, my boss's eyes filled with fear, the photograph of Ava taken without my knowledge, the unknown voice warning me our building was surrounded. Whatever this was, it went far beyond my job. It was bigger than financial fraud or corporate wrongdoing. It was personal, and it was deadly. When we landed in Durango, the air was crisp and cold. The airport was small, surrounded by towering mountains capped with snow. People moved at a slower pace than in Chicago, talking casually, sipping coffee. It almost felt peaceful, too peaceful for what I had just escaped. I pulled the prepaid phone from my pocket. turned it on, and dialed the only number saved inside. The phone rang once. A man's voice answered, "Leave the airport immediately. A black pickup truck will pull up. Get in. Do not speak until I tell you to." Then he hung up without another word. I grabbed our bags and rushed Ava outside. Within seconds, a black pickup truck approached the curb. The driver, a rugged man in his late 40s with sharp eyes and a face that had seen hard years, rolled down the window. "Natalie Reyes," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "Get in." Every instinct told me to protect Ava at all costs. I studied his face. He wasn't hiding behind sunglasses. His hands were steady on the wheel. His eyes were alert, not predatory, but protective. I made a choice. I buckled Ava into the back seat and climbed into the passenger side. "My name is Daniel Cross," he said once we were on the road. "Your boss, Rowan Blake, was my partner in a federal task force. 3 years ago, we uncovered a network using private financial firms like Stratton to launder money for international crime syndicates. When Rowan realized the network was operating inside his own firm, he tried to expose it. The people behind it found out. They killed his wife. They've been chasing him ever since." I stared at him in shock. "Why me? I'm just an employee. I don't know anything." Daniel looked directly at me. "That's where you're wrong. 2 days ago, you processed a transfer request for a dormant account. When you flagged an irregularity, you unknowingly uncovered the account they've been using to hide millions. They saw the log. They know you accessed it. That makes you a loose end." My stomach dropped. I remembered the moment clearly. An account with no activity for years suddenly received a transfer of $20 million from an overseas source. I had asked the department head for clarification, and she told me to approve it and say nothing. I never imagined that single click would throw my life into chaos. I felt anger rising, battling the fear. So they're doing all of this because they think I know something? Daniel shook his head. "Not think. They are certain you saw enough to expose them. They do not take chances." The truck turned off the main road, climbing into the mountains, as pine trees surrounded us. Daniel continued, "Rowan knew you were being watched. He also knew that if he made any direct move, they would eliminate you and your daughter. So he did the only thing he could. He used himself as a distraction to buy you time." The weight of his words hit me hard. My intimidating, distant boss, who I thought barely knew I existed, had risked everything to protect me. Daniel pulled the truck up to a secluded cabin hidden among the trees. Smoke rose from the chimney. It looked like a place untouched by the world. A safe house. He turned off the engine and looked at me with serious eyes. "You have 2 choices. You can disappear with your daughter into federal witness protection, change your identity, and never look back. Or you can stand with us, expose this network and make sure they never hurt another family again. But understand the cost. If you choose to fight, there is no guarantee you'll ever return to your old life." I glanced at Ava through the rearview mirror. She was awake now, hugging her backpack and looking out the window with wide eyes. She had no idea that in the next few seconds I would make a decision that would determine the rest of our lives. I turned back to Daniel, my heart pounding with fear, but also with purpose. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the truth settling inside me. I hadn't been chosen by accident. I had been placed in the one position that could bring their entire operation down. "I'm not running," I said. "I'm not leaving other families to go through what we're going through. Tell me what I need to do." Daniel nodded once, like he had been waiting for that answer. And with that, everything shifted. I was no longer a target running for safety. I was a mother preparing for war. Daniel led me into the cabin, and as soon as the door shut behind us, I felt the tension in the air. It wasn't just a safe house. This was a command center. Maps covered the walls with red markers circling major cities. A wide wooden table was covered in files, flash drives, and stacks of documents. In the center sat a laptop with military-grade encryption equipment attached. Everything about this place told me one thing: this wasn't a hiding spot. It was a launching point. Daniel motioned toward a chair. "Sit. There's something you need to see." I sat, gripping the edge of the table as he inserted a flash drive into the computer. A video appeared on the screen. My breath caught in my throat when I saw who it was. My boss, Rowan Blake. His hair was disheveled, and a deep bruise darkened the side of his face. He was in a dimly lit room, speaking directly into the camera with urgency. "If you are watching this, Natalie. They found me, but not you. Good. That means Daniel got to you in time. He paused, swallowing hard. I never told you why I hired you. It wasn't because of your resume. It was because of your integrity. I've been looking for someone who still believed in doing the right thing, even when nobody was watching. 2 days ago, when you questioned the $20 million transfer, you confirmed what I suspected. You saw the account. You saw the name attached. And now they will stop at nothing to silence you. My pulse quickened. What name? I had only seen numbers on the document, not a name. Rowan must have seen the confusion on my face through the screen because he continued. The account belongs to Senator Victor Harland. The moment he said the name, everything clicked. Senator Harland wasn't just a politician. He was one of the most powerful figures in the country, known for his political influence and constant appearances on television advocating economic reform. Suddenly, his vague policies and secretive donor lists made horrifying sense. Rowan's voice lowered. Harland has been laundering billions through private financial firms to fund global criminal networks. He is behind everything. The deaths, the threats, the disappearances, it all leads back to him. And now, Natalie, you are in possession of proof that could dismantle his entire empire. I stared at the screen, stunned. This wasn't corporate fraud. This was treason, conspiracy, mass corruption at a level that could destroy lives, governments, and nations. On the screen, Rowan took a shaky breath. The files you processed are critical. You have unknowingly activated the final link in the chain. Daniel has the rest. Together, you can connect every transaction, every shell company, every offshore account. Once the data is released, Harland will have nowhere to hide. Suddenly, a loud crash came from outside the cabin, then another. Daniel instantly grabbed a gun from a drawer and motioned for me to get down. The windows rattled with impact as dark silhouettes moved in the tree line. Ava screamed from the corner where she had been sitting on a blanket with her stuffed toy. I sprinted to her and shielded her body with mine. Daniel shouted, "They found us. Stay low." Gunshots exploded through the quiet mountain air. The cabin shook as bullets hit the exterior walls. Daniel fired back through a reinforced window. 2 men dropped, but more swarmed forward. I could see the glint of tactical helmets and night vision goggles as they emerged from the shadows. These weren't criminals. They were trained professionals, mercenaries. A crash sounded behind us as the back door was kicked in. Daniel turned and shouted, "Go to the cellar, now." He fired again, covering us as I scooped Ava into my arms and ran to the trapdoor in the floor. I hesitated, unwilling to leave him, but he yelled again, "Natalie, go. I'll hold them off." With shaking hands, I pulled open the trapdoor and climbed down the ladder into a hidden bunker. It was small, cold, and dark, but secure. I held Ava tightly as she buried her face in my shoulder, trembling. Above us, footsteps thundered. Daniel's voice roared commands. Then more shots. Silence followed. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, a loud explosion shook the bunker, and the ceiling rained dust. Ava whimpered in fear. Then I heard the emergency phone in the bunker begin to ring. I answered with a trembling hand. A voice spoke, calm, steady, deeply familiar. It was Rowan. "You did well, Natalie," he said, his voice strained but alive. "But this is only the beginning. They came tonight because they know we're close. Everything you need is in that bunker. The final piece is now in your hands." My heart pounded. The man I thought was gone was not only alive, he was still fighting. Rowan spoke again, with urgency this time. "You have 2 hours before they regroup. You must make a choice, hide forever or step into the light and end this." As I held my daughter in the darkness with the world above us falling apart, I finally understood. I was no longer running from danger. I was running toward the truth, and I would not stop until every person behind this conspiracy was brought down, even if it cost me everything. The bunker fell silent, except for the soft hum of the generator and the faint sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Rowan's voice echoed in my mind as I held Ava close. 2 hours. That was the time I had until they returned. 2 hours to decide whether I would disappear into a life built on fear and shadows or rise up and expose the men who had destroyed so many lives. I stood and walked deeper into the bunker where a long metal desk was lined with files, USB drives, and documents sealed with government insignias. Every piece of evidence was meticulously labeled, linking Senator Victor Harland and a network of high-ranking officials to offshore accounts, criminal organizations, and covert operations that had ended in the deaths of countless innocent people. Some of the victims were whistleblowers, others were family members eliminated just for being too close to the truth. Daniel appeared at the top of the ladder, blood on his sleeve, but still standing. His voice was low but steady as he descended. They pulled back for now. They think the explosion took us out. We have a window, but not a big one. I looked at him and said the words that had already formed inside me. I'm not running anymore. This ends today. Daniel nodded once, like he had already known I would say that. He placed a secure satellite laptop in front of me and connected the final encrypted drive containing Rowan's master file. As the system powered on, an alert flashed across the screen. Press enter to begin full global data release. This was no simple upload. It was a chain reaction. Files were ready to be mirrored to every major news outlet, federal database, and international court in real time. Once initiated, there would be no stopping it. Names, bank transactions, audio recordings, everything would be exposed to the world. With Ava watching silently, her eyes wide with innocence and trust, I pressed the key. Immediately, status bars began filling one by one. FBI connected, Interpol connected, Reuters, CNN, BBC connected. The truth that had been buried for years was now racing across the world in a wave of justice. As the upload completed, I felt tears fill my eyes, not from fear, but from a sense of release. The monster hiding behind wealth and power could no longer hide. Every transaction and every crime now had a name attached to it. Suddenly, the emergency phone rang again. I answered, and Rowan's voice came through, weaker now, but filled with something I had never heard in him before, peace. You've done it, Natalie. You ended what I couldn't, he said. I asked where he was, but there was a long pause before he replied. My time is done, but yours is just beginning. The world knows the truth because of you. Protect your daughter, live your life freely, and never forget, you were chosen not because of what you knew, but because of who you are. The line went dead. Within hours, news alerts exploded across every screen. Federal agents arrested high-ranking officials. Senator Harland was detained at a private airstrip attempting to flee the country. Protests erupted. The public demanded justice. Investigations opened globally, and government agencies were forced into transparency. It was one of the largest political takedowns in American history. But with the victory came a price. Daniel helped us relocate temporarily while security was placed around us. The government offered witness protection, new identities, and a new life anywhere we wanted. For the first time in months, I slept without fear. Ava slept peacefully beside me, clutching her stuffed animal, unaware that her mother had just changed the course of history. Weeks passed. The world adjusted to a new reality, and one morning, as I watched the sunrise over the quiet mountain horizon, Ava climbed into my lap and looked at me with her bright green eyes. Mom, she said softly, are the bad people gone now? I held her close and replied, they're gone, and they won't hurt us ever again. In that moment, I understood something deeply. This wasn't a story about running from fear. It was a story about facing it, about standing up when it would have been easier to hide, about an ordinary woman who chose to fight for the truth because the truth matters. Not everyone will be called to expose global corruption, but everyone at some point in their life will face a moment when they must choose between fear and courage, between silence and truth, between surviving and truly living. And when that moment comes, I hope they remember this story, not as a tale of danger, but as proof of what one person can do when they refuse to break. My name is Natalie Reyes. I was never a hero. I was a mother who loved her daughter, and that love made me fearless. If this story moved you, make sure you subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because the next story may be happening in your city, your workplace, or your home.